Yitar, guide my path.
Kharazim is probably one of the strongest supports right now. His place in the meta is basically whenever Uther isn't up, you want to pick Kharazim because just in terms of rule healing, he's the best. And like rule supporting, he's the best. So what makes him unique is that he's one of the only supports with a lot of mobility, and that means he has a really high skill cap. A good Kharazim player can get a lot more heals than a not great one, and that's quite different in terms of supports, because obviously heroes like Uther, it's very much click to heal, whereas with Kharazim you can do damage to heal with your passive, you need to use your E properly, you can position very aggressively to either deal more damage and in turn heal more, or heal different kinds of people. His W is obviously AoE, so again that synergizes really well with his mobility. And just in general, there's no hero like him, so it took people a long time to pick him up, but finally people have, and he's really strong. When he was first announced, he definitely didn't look like a full support. His W heal looked really small. His just kit in general seemed much more suited to a damage roll, especially with his 2 attack speed. But as soon as I played him, the very first game I realized how strong a hero he was. And I told everyone I spoke to about how broken he was. Although no one believed me at first. So his Q is Radiant Dash, and it's a medium range ability that you click on ally or enemy and you dash to it. If it's an enemy, you hit them with a basic attack. In general, this is mostly used to get more auto attacks off. Usually, I use 1 to go in, and I will save 1 to go out. Although the going in one is not always required. The 1 to get out, you must always have. Otherwise, you can usually be killed quite easily. In general, you want to use it to get a big proc of your E off. So if you see a tank that's going to be in position for a decent amount of time, then you want to Q to them and you want to E, and that will allow you to get a lot more healing off. One of the less used uses of Radiant Dash is in skirmishing or laning. A lot of people will dash to an enemy and they will get 2 auto attacks off because of it. 1 from the Radiant Dash and 1 more from just a general right click. The issue with that is that he attacks twice per second, so getting 2 off is very low damage actually. Ideally, what you want to do is you want to dash behind the target you want to hit when they're trying to run away, and you want to body block them, and you want to get as many autos as possible. If you can dash behind your target, then you can get 5, 6, maybe even more autos, which allows you to trade much more effectively than if you just queue onto them. So his W is Breath of Heaven, and this is his main heal. It's fairly decent scaling. It's not the best, but the base value is quite high, and it's a area effect around you, basically a circle. It gives movement speed. I think it's 10% for 3 seconds. So you can use it to chase a bit and to escape a bit, but it's not big. The movement speed isn't big. You want to be in range of as many people as possible when you use your W. And your E is, of course, Deadly Reach. A lot of people will pop this on cooldown, but you want to wait until you can stand still and auto attack the entire time with your E, because that allows you to get a lot more damage and a lot more healing off. In terms of ultimates, his first one is 7-sided strike, and he basically becomes invulnerable and strikes 7 times over 1.8 seconds, although it says 2, it's actually 1.8. And each strike hits the highest health hero for 7% of their maximum health. So the ideal use case for this ability is actually if you can hit one target, especially if it's a tank. If there's a tank who's alone in your backline and you press this ability, you almost immediately deal half of their HP, and that's a huge amount of damage, especially late game. Obviously this works still against Mjolnir and Leoric. And his other ultimate is Divine Palm, and you put a mark on someone. If they die, then they are healed by a very large amount. It's a full life on a carry, about half on tanky tanks, and I think the mark lasts for 3 seconds. So this is fantastic versus dive comps, and it's also fantastic in sustain fights. If you're drawing out a fight, it allows your tank to go much deeper, because as soon as your tank is about to be punished, you can Divine Palm him. If they're diving you, and they blow all of their cooldowns on killing a carry, for example, then you just put Divine Palm on them, they revive, and the fight's reset, and they've got no cooldowns. So it's a really great ability. Something that a lot of people don't realize about this ability, which they are definitely starting to, is the fact that you can actually use it to prevent damage onto someone when they are low HP. It doesn't always have to proc, and that gets a lot stronger with the level 20 upgrade. So if they're chasing down a Raynor and I put Divine Palm on him, it doesn't need to hit, he doesn't need to go back in, he just carries on running. He'll probably get out after that, because obviously of the movement speed that I can give him, from the movement speed that he can give himself. As long as he's got 3 seconds to run away and they can't attack him with anything, that means he's probably out. So that's a use case that I'd like to see a lot more. In terms of talents, he can actually pick his own trait at level 1, which is definitely unique for him. Although I think some work might be needed to fix it. His first choice is healing, and that's every third attack he heals for a decently large amount, especially early game. The other one is every third attack deals bonus damage, and the third one is every third attack gives you mana. In general, you can only take heal. I don't think there's any scenario we can take the other two. At level 4, Protective Shield is actually fantastic. It is a key part of his kit, and it's a key part of making people survive. So you pretty much need to take that one. At 7, Echo of Heaven is a talent that basically makes your W strike again 3 seconds later, that's your heal, for 50% effectiveness. And that gives you a lot more healing than you think. So I would recommend taking that pretty much every time that you can. Although Cleanse is of course an option. In terms of ultimates, it really depends on the game. Both choices are really good. And if you want to try and kill someone, then you take 7-sided. If you want to stop them killing your team, then you take Divine Palm. At level 13, I think Relentless is almost required. It's a really strong ability, and although at first you might think that if you just play better you don't need it, the key part about Relentless is that it allows you to stand in such an aggressive position and get as many heals and auto stacks off as you do without them being able to punish you. Because when they try to CC lock you, you have Relentless and you can queue out. At 16, I think probably the best talent is Circle of Life, which is Breath of Heaven's healing is increased by 10% for each allied hero in the cast range. So you can get 40% more healing sometimes, just off of this talent. The other option is Soothing Breeze, and that removes all silences, blinds, slows, and roots. It's a cleanse, but it does not affect stuns. And it's AoE, which means it's fantastic versus things like Sylvanas Arrow, it's great versus things like Ring of Frost, it's good versus Arthas, it obviously removes blinds as well, so if they have some kind of Johanna, and you've got a Raynor, is also really good in that case. At level 20, I really like both upgrades, but he also has Storm Shield, so that's a fantastic talent as well. Something very special about Kharazim in lane is the fact that it's very difficult to poke him out. It's near on impossible, because the sustain that he gets from his passive and his W just means that he can pretty much just take free poke, he can tank waves, and he really doesn't care because he out-heals it. So that allows him to zone very effectively. If you know where the enemy team are, and he's not going to be ganked by a lot of members, then you can pretty much zone anybody from XP, especially tanks. I think the only lanes that he has trouble with is actually Johanna, because she blinds him and then clears the wave. When you are ganked, it's actually quite easy to escape as long as you have one Q up. If you have two Q ups, then I don't think you can die. Because obviously, as soon as you see someone come in, you can just Q to any menu you want straight away. You can Q another time if you have it. You can walk a bit and then Q. It really doesn't matter, but he's really hard to gank as well as being really sustaining. In team fights, you look to basically, it depends what ultimate you choose actually. That's the biggest thing. If you have 7-sided strike, then you look to stay sort of on their diving tank if they have one, or their diving hero. If there's a Leoric or Arthas or Muradin who looks to sort of zone the backline and will be doing it alone, then you can take 7-sided strike. You can kill him almost instantly with your team. And obviously, that's what you look to do. You stay around your backline, you look for that flanking tank. If you take Divine Palm, then you look to save your carry. So, when they dive on somebody, you should be stood in the middle of the team fight. If they dive on your tank, if it's Arthas for example, then you can Q to him, or Q near him, and palm him. If they dive on your carry, then you can Q to them, or Q near them, and palm them. So you just need to be watchful for that. You want to be near as many people as possible with your W at most times. When you're not doing anything team fights, you want to be looking to get as many free auto attacks as possible off. That's usually on their tank, as that allows you to get obviously more damage and more healing for your team. I think in general, he's usually the best choice when Uther is out. You want to pick him specifically against things like Butcher, things like Kerrigan, as that allows his Divine Palm to be really effective. Playing against Kharazim, the most important thing is obviously when he is 7-sided, stick together. Do not go on your own, because you're gonna get chunked for half of your HP immediately. When you're playing against the Divine Palm Kharazim, ideally you would look to deal enough damage to burst a carry twice. So if you have a super hard dive comp and you can dive onto a Kel'Thas for example, or maybe Stitch's pull Kel'Thas, then Monk Palm doesn't actually save him because he will res and then immediately die again. So obviously that's some really nice counterplay. I don't think trying to stop damage on Palm is actually worth it, because it gives them 3 seconds of life and usually you can kill them through it anyway, unless the Monk has mistimed Palm quite badly.
So maybe you don't want all the priority going to a game. Maybe you want it all going to a YouTube video or